Welcome to Anglicán Origins, the podcast that explores the history of the Anglo-Saxon people, from their origins to the Norman conquest. In each episode, we'll dive deep into the lives of the key figures of this fascinating period, from kings and queens to warriors and poets. Through storytelling and analysis, we'll explore the events that shaped this pivotal era in English history, and how they still resonate today. Hello and welcome to Anglicán Origins, episode number 6. Today we'll be turning our attention to the Anglo-Saxon Luna Calendar, a topic suggested by Andrew Davenport on Instagram, so thank you Andrew for the idea. The Anglo-Saxon Luna Calendar was a unique way of keeping track of time that was used in England during the early Middle Ages. It was closely tied to the cycles of the moon and was an essential part of Anglo-Saxon culture and mythology. In this episode we'll be exploring the Anglo-Saxon Lunar Calendar in depth, examining why it was important to the Anglo-Saxons, how it influenced their daily lives, and examining important months and why they were significant. Let's get to it. The Anglo-Saxon period in Britain was a time of immense cultural and social transformation. This era saw the emergence of a unique Anglo-Saxon culture, marked by its own language, art, and religious practices. Central to this cultural identity was the Anglo-Saxon calendar, which played a significant role in the shaping of the rhythms of daily lives and the festivals and rituals that marked the passing of the year. The Anglo-Saxon calendar, as we know it today, is primarily based on the works by the Venerable Bede, an Anglo-Saxon monk who lived in the 7th and 8th century. In his work on the Reckoning of Time, Bede provides a detailed account of the calendar, drawn on his own observations as well as earlier sources. According to Bede, the Anglo-Saxon calendar was lunar-based, with 12 lunar months in the year. Each month began on the night that the young moon was sighted. Bede specifies that the new moon, which we now refer to as the dark moon, was not the start of the month, but rather the first sighting of the young moon. Bede also tells us that the Anglo-Saxon calendar was not an exact match with the Roman calendar, which was based on the solar year. While the Anglo-Saxons used the Roman month names, their lunar-based calendar meant that the months did not always coincide with the same time of the year as in the Roman calendar. To compensate for this, the Anglo-Saxons occasionally added a 13th month to keep their lunar months in line with the solar year, and hence the seasons. The Anglo-Saxon calendar recognised only 2 seasons, winter and summer, each of which was 6 months long, except in leap years when the summer was 7 months long. Winter began on the full moon of Winterfylleð, which is in October, and summer began 6 months later, presumably on the full moon of Ēosturmōnaþ in April. The lunar calendar also had a significant impact on religious observances among the Anglo-Saxons. Their pagan beliefs were deeply intertwined with nature and celestial bodies, and the lunar cycle held great spiritual significance. Each month was associated with a specific deity or goddess, and religious rituals and ceremonies were often conducted in accordance with the lunar phases. The lunar calendar also played a role in regulating social interaction and communal activities. Anglo-Saxon society was highly communal, and the lunar cycle helped coordinate important community events. For example, the timing of market days, where trade and commerce flourished, was often determined based on lunar phases. Additionally, the calendar provided a framework for planning gatherings, meetings, and assemblies, allowing individuals to synchronize their activities with the larger community. The lunar calendar acted as a unifying force, bringing people together and facilitating social cohesion. Now, before we look over the months celebrated in the lunar calendar, I want to stipulate that my pronunciation of the names may not be accurate. I'm not an expert in Old English by any means, so bear with me. There's some pretty challenging names in here, so take my pronunciations of them with a pinch of salt. The first month of the Anglo-Saxon calendar was Æfterra Gēola, which roughly corresponds to our January. This month literally means after Yule, and refers to the day that the sun turns around and the days begin to increase in length. This is described in the winter solstice, which was a significant event in Anglo-Saxon culture. The second month was Sōlmōnaþ, which Bede tells us means month of cakes. This was the month when cakes were traditionally baked, although the Old English word sol means mud, leading some scholars to speculate that these cakes may have had a mud-like texture or colour. The third month, Ēosturmōnaþ, roughly corresponds to March. It was in this month that the Anglo-Saxons made offerings to the goddess Ēfterra, although little is known about her beyond Bede's account. The fourth month was Ēosturmōnaþ, which roughly corresponds to our April. Bede tells us that the Anglo-Saxons sacrificed to the goddess Ēosturmōnaþ during this month. The goddess is better known in popular culture, and the Christian holiday Easter is named after her. Next we have Thri Milchi, which means three milkings, which was the month of May in the Anglo-Saxon calendar. This was a time of abundance, as livestock were producing a great deal of milk. This was a time for feasting and celebration, as Anglo-Saxons enjoyed the fruits of their labour and abundance of nature. Thri Milchi was also a time for religious ceremony and rituals, as the Anglo-Saxons believed that this was the time when their gods were particularly active and could be easily accessed. After Thri Milchi we have Ēosturmōnaþ, the Anglo-Saxon month corresponding to June. This month was a period of agricultural productivity, cultural celebrations and social interactions. As Anglo-Saxons embraced the arrival of summer, they engaged in farming activities, celebrated the madness of the seasons, and participated in communal gatherings. This month provided an opportunity to nurture crops, tend livestock, strengthen social bonds, and appreciate the splendour of the natural world. Next we have Æfterra Gēola, the Anglo-Saxon month corresponding to July. Æfterra Gēola represented a crucial period of agricultural activities. The focus shifted towards crop maintenance and the preparation for the upcoming harvest. Following on, we had Ēosturmōnaþ, which was an important month in the Anglo-Saxon Lunar Calendar, corresponding roughly to August on our modern calendar. The name Ēosturmōnaþ translates to weed month in Old English. This month was characterised by the diligent management of crops and fields, with a focus on weeding and ensuring the health of cultivated plants. We then have Ēosturmōnaþ, which corresponds roughly to September. Ēosturmōnaþ means holy month, and it was during this month that the Anglo-Saxons celebrate their harvest festival. This festival was called Modronit, which means Mother's Night, and was dedicated to the goddesses Frigg and Freya. The next month is Winterfylleð. Winterfylleð was an important month in the Anglo-Saxon lunar calendar, corresponding roughly to October in our calendar. The name Winterfylleð combines the Old English words winter and fylleð, which means full moon. Winterfylleð represented a pivotal moment for the Anglo-Saxons, as they transitioned from the abundance of summer to the harshness of winter. This month marked the onset of the colder weather, shorter days and longer nights. It was a time when the community had to make preparations to endure the challenges that winter presented. The Anglo-Saxons would take measures to secure their dwellings, fortify their food stores, and make necessary arrangements to ensure their survival during the coming months of limited resources and inclement weather. In addition to the practical aspects, Winterfylleð held spiritual significance for the Anglo-Saxons. The full moon during this month was considered sacred and played a role in their religious beliefs and practices. It was a time for communal gatherings and religious ceremonies where people would honour their gods and ancestors. Rituals and sacrifices may have been performed to seek blessing, protection and guidance for the winter season. After Winterfylleð comes Sōlmōnaþ, which corresponds roughly to November. Sōlmōnaþ means month of sacrifice, and it was during this month that the Anglo-Saxons made sacrifices to their gods in preparation for the winter. They would slaughter their livestock and offer them as sacrifices to ensure a good harvest in the coming year. And then finally, we have Æfterra Gēola, which corresponds roughly to December, which means before Yule, and marked the beginning of the Yule season. This was the time when the days are the shortest and the nights are longest, and it was a time of great celebration for the Anglo-Saxons. They would gather together, light fires and feast in anticipation of the return of the sun and the lengthening of the days. Although the advent of Christianity and the adoption of the Gregorian calendar eventually replaced the lunar calendar, its legacy can still be seen in the remnants of the cultural practices and traditions that have survived to this day. And that's all for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and spending some of your time here with me. Please feel free to follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and anywhere else you like to listen to your podcasts. Like it, share it, rate it, and all that good stuff. It would really mean a great deal to me. Join me next time as we continue to delve further into the world of the Anglo-Saxons, as we continue to explore their remarkable society, culture, and everyday lives. Until then, take care and stay curious. Bye-bye. Ēosturmōnaþ, Ēosturmōnaþ, Hali-huli-hula-hala. I'm going with Ēosturmōnaþ. That's good enough to do.